Marcus Thompson had always been the kind of guy who minded his own business. Working as a cargo handler at the sprawling Denver spaceport, he'd seen enough weird stuff come through the loading bays to know that asking too many questions was a good way to lose sleep. But when he stumbled across what looked like a woman bleeding out behind a stack of shipping containers at 3 in the morning, his conscience wouldn't let him walk away. The woman wasn't human, that much was obvious. Her skin had a faint bluish tint, and when she looked up at him with those large amber eyes, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, but more than that, she was terrified. Her clothes were torn, and dark purple blood seeped from a wound in her side. "Help," she whispered in accented English, her voice barely audible over the hum of the cargo loaders. "Please." Marcus didn't hesitate. He'd been through basic first aid training, and bleeding was bleeding, regardless of species. He pressed his jacket against her wound, feeling the warmth of her blood soaking through the fabric. "Hey, it's okay. I'm going to help you. What's your name?" "Zara," she managed, her breathing shallow. "Zara Veltur." "I'm Marcus. Can you tell me what happened?" Her eyes darted around the loading bay, and she gripped his arm with surprising strength. "Hunters, they found us. My daughters. They're looking for my daughters." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "Your daughters are here. Are they hurt?" "Safe, hidden, but not for long." Zara's voice was growing weaker. "They will come for them, always come for them." "Who's they? What do they want?" Before Zara could answer, the distant sound of boots on metal echoed through the bay. Marcus looked up to see 3 figures in dark tactical gear moving systematically through the containers, scanning with handheld devices. Even from a distance, he could see they weren't port security. "Stay quiet," Marcus whispered, helping Zara to her feet. His mind raced. The maintenance tunnels beneath the spaceport were a maze that most people didn't even know existed. If he could get her there, they might have a chance. Supporting Zara's weight, Marcus led her toward a service hatch he'd used countless times during his 5 years at the port. The hunters were getting closer, their devices beeping steadily. Whatever they were tracking, they were homing in on it. "The tunnels go for miles," Marcus explained quietly as they descended into the dimly lit maintenance corridor. "Used to be part of the old subway system before they built the port. Where are your daughters?" "Cargo Bay 7, Zara said, her voice steadier now. "Told them to hide if anything happened to me." Marcus knew Cargo Bay 7 well. It was one of the older sections, scheduled for renovation but currently empty. Plenty of places to hide, but also plenty of places to get trapped. "We need to get you medical attention," Marcus said as they moved through the tunnel. "That wound looks serious." "Cannot go to your doctors. They would ask questions. Call authorities." Zara paused, pressing her hand against the wall for support. There are things about my people, about why we're here, that your government cannot know. Are you refugees? Zara's laugh was bitter. Something like that. My people, we are warriors, have been for generations. But sometimes being a warrior means knowing when to run. They reached a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Marcus chose the path that would take them closest to Cargo Bay 7, but as they walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. The hunters had equipment that could track Zara somehow, and it was only a matter of time before they figured out the tunnel system. "Tell me about your daughters," Marcus said, partly to keep Zara talking and partly because he needed to understand what he was getting himself into. Lyra is 19, the oldest. She is fierce, protective, sometimes too protective. Zara's voice carried a mixture of pride and worry. Nova is 17, brilliant but reckless. She thinks she knows better than everyone else. And Kira, my youngest at 15, she is special, sees things others cannot. What kind of things? Patterns, connections. She knew the hunters were coming before they arrived. Told me we needed to leave, but I waited too long. Thought we had more time. They reached another service hatch, this one leading up to a storage room adjacent to Cargo Bay 7. Marcus climbed up first, checking to make sure the coast was clear before helping Zara up. The effort clearly cost her, and by the time she was standing, her face was pale with exhaustion. "Stay here," Marcus said. "I'll go find your daughters." "No," Zara grabbed his arm. "They won't trust you. They'll think you're one of them." "Then come with me. Can you walk?" Zara nodded. Though Marcus could see the determination in her eyes was warring with her physical limitations. They made their way through the storage room and into the main cargo bay, where towering stacks of shipping containers created a labyrinth of shadows and hiding spots. "Lyra," Zara called softly. "Nova, Kira, it's safe." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Marcus heard the faint sound of movement from behind a container marked with hazardous materials warnings. 3 figures emerged from the shadows, and Marcus felt his breath catch. The daughters were clearly Zara's children, sharing her distinctive features and coloring, but each was unique. Lyra moved with the fluid grace of a trained fighter, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. Nova had an intense, analytical look, as if she was processing multiple scenarios simultaneously. Kira, the youngest, seemed to be looking right through Marcus, her gaze unsettling in its intensity. "Mother," Lyra said, rushing to Zara's side, "you're injured." "It's not serious," Zara lied, though her daughters clearly didn't believe her. "This is Marcus. He helped me." The 3 girls studied Marcus with varying degrees of suspicion. Lyra's hand rested on what looked like a weapon concealed beneath her jacket. Nova's eyes narrowed as she sized him up, but Kira tilted her head, and Marcus had the strangest feeling she was seeing something about him that the others couldn't. "He's different," Kira said quietly. "The patterns around him, they're not like the others." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked. "It means," Zara said, settling heavily against a container, "that my youngest daughter has a gift for seeing people's true nature, and apparently yours is worth trusting." Before Marcus could respond, the sound of boots on concrete echoed through the cargo bay. The hunters had found them. "How many?" Lyra asked, her weapon now clearly visible. "3 that I saw," Marcus replied, "but there could be more." "There are 5, Kira said with certainty. 2 are circling around to block the exits." Nova was already moving, pulling some kind of device from her bag. "I can scramble their tracking for maybe 10 minutes, but after that, they'll find us." "Then we need to move," Marcus said. "I know every inch of this port. I can get you out." "Where?" Zara asked. "They'll follow us wherever we go. They always do." Marcus looked at the 4 women, at the exhaustion and fear in their faces, and made a decision that would change his life forever. "My place. It's off the grid, no official records. I built it myself in the old industrial district. They won't find you there." "You don't understand," Lyra said. "These people, they don't give up. They'll tear apart your entire life looking for us." "Then we'll have to make sure they don't find you," Marcus replied. "Come on." The next few hours blurred together in a haze of adrenaline and careful planning. Marcus led them through maintenance tunnels, service corridors, and forgotten passages that honeycombed the spaceport. Twice they had to hide while hunters passed overhead, their scanning devices beeping frantically. By dawn, they had reached Marcus's truck in the employee parking garage. The drive to his home was tense, with Nova monitoring emergency frequencies and Kira watching the patterns of traffic around them. Marcus lived in a converted warehouse in a section of the city that had been abandoned when the aerospace industry moved operations to the spaceport. "This is it," Marcus said as they pulled up to the unmarked building. "Home sweet home." The warehouse didn't look like much from the outside, but Marcus had spent 3 years converting it into a comfortable living space. Solar panels on the roof provided power, and a sophisticated water filtration system made him completely self-sufficient. More importantly, the building was shielded from most forms of electronic surveillance. "You live here alone?" Nova asked, her analytical mind cataloging every detail. "Yeah, never saw the point in having neighbors." Marcus unlocked the heavy steel door. "There's a medical kit inside. Let me take a look at that wound." As they settled into the main living area, Marcus began to understand the magnitude of what he'd gotten himself into. Zara's injury was more serious than she'd let on, and despite his first aid training, Marcus knew she needed proper medical attention. But more than that, he was beginning to grasp the complexity of their situation. "The hunters," he said as he cleaned and bandaged Zara's wound. "They're not government, are they?" "Worse," Zara replied. "They're bounty hunters, private contractors who hunt people like us for clients who prefer to remain anonymous." "What do they want with you?" "Our abilities," Nova said bluntly. "My people have been warriors for centuries. We're stronger, faster, more resilient than humans. Some of your people see us as a resource to be exploited." "Slaves," Lyra added, her voice hard. "They want to use us as weapons." Marcus felt sick. "That's illegal. Human trafficking is a serious crime." "Only if the victims are considered human," Kira said quietly. "In the eyes of your laws, we're classified as non-human entities. We have fewer rights than your pets." The reality of their situation hit Marcus like a physical blow. These weren't just refugees seeking shelter. They were people whose very existence was being denied by the system he'd always trusted to protect the innocent. "How long have you been running?" he asked. 3 years, Zara said. "Ever since they took my mate." The pain in her voice was unmistakable, and Marcus saw the way her daughters' faces tightened with shared grief and anger. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, meaning it. "He died fighting to protect us," Lyra said. "Gave us time to escape." "And we've been running ever since," Nova added. "Moving from place to place, never staying long enough to build a life." Marcus looked around his warehouse, at the home he'd built with his own hands, at the life he'd created for himself. It wasn't much by most standards, but it was his. And now he was about to risk it all for 4 people he'd known for less than 12 hours. "You can stay here," he said, "as long as you need to." "You don't understand the danger," Zara insisted. "They won't stop looking for us, and when they find us, they'll destroy anyone who helped us." "Then we'll make sure they don't find us," Marcus replied. "I've got some vacation time saved up. We'll figure out a permanent solution." Kira was studying him again with that unsettling intensity. "The patterns are shifting," she said. "This place, this moment, it's a convergence point. Things will change from here." "What kind of things?" Marcus asked. "Everything," Kira replied simply. As the sun rose over the city, Marcus made coffee and watched his unexpected guests settle into his home. Zara had fallen asleep on the couch, exhaustion finally overcoming her. Lyra stood guard by the windows, her warrior's instincts never fully at rest. Nova was examining his electronics with professional interest, probably looking for vulnerabilities in his security setup. And Kira sat in the corner, her strange eyes focused on something only she could see. Marcus had no idea what he was getting himself into, but he knew one thing for certain: there was no going back now. The first week passed in a careful routine of healing and planning. Zara's wound slowly improved under Marcus's attentive care, though she remained weak. Her daughters gradually began to trust him, each in their own way. Lyra appointed herself as Marcus's combat instructor, insisting that if he was going to protect them, he needed to know how to fight. Her people's martial arts were unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, combining fluid movements with devastating efficiency. Within days, his body ached in places he didn't know existed, but he was learning. Nova became fascinated with Marcus's electronics and security systems, making improvements that turned his warehouse into a technological fortress. She had an intuitive understanding of human technology that amazed Marcus, often solving problems he hadn't even known existed. Kira remained the most enigmatic of the three. She spent hours sitting quietly, sometimes talking to herself in her native language, sometimes drawing complex patterns that meant nothing to Marcus, but seemed to hold deep significance for her. "She's mapping the future," Zara explained one evening as they watched Kira work. "Not seeing it exactly, but understanding the probabilities, the way events connect and influence each other." "And what does she see for us?" Marcus asked. "A change," Zara said simply. "Great change." Marcus had taken a leave of absence from his job, claiming a family emergency. His supervisor, Janet Rodriguez, was sympathetic but concerned. Marcus had never taken time off, never even called in sick. His sudden absence was completely out of character. "You sure you're okay, Marcus?" she asked during one of their brief phone conversations. "You sound different." "I'm fine, Janet. Just dealing with some family stuff." "Family? I thought you didn't have any family." Marcus hesitated. "It's complicated." After he hung up, he found Zara watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "You're lying to protect us," she said. "This will cost you." "Maybe, but it's the right thing to do." "Why?" The question came from Nova, who had been listening from across the room. "Why risk everything for strangers?" Marcus considered the question. "Because everyone deserves a chance to be free. Because what's happening to you is wrong. Because—" he paused, searching for the right words. "Because I've spent my whole life playing it safe, and for the first time I'm doing something that matters." Lyra looked up from the weapon she was cleaning. "In our culture, there's a concept called Catherine. It means the bond between warriors who fight together, who trust each other with their lives." "We're not warriors," Marcus said. "Aren't we?" Lyra smiled. "You're fighting for us. That makes you a warrior." As the days passed, Marcus began to understand the depth of the trauma his guests had endured. Zara sometimes woke screaming from nightmares about her mate's death. Nova would freeze at unexpected sounds, her body tensing for combat. Lyra never fully relaxed, always ready for the next attack. But Kira worried him most. The youngest daughter seemed to carry the weight of terrible knowledge, her strange gift showing her possibilities that frightened her. "The hunters are getting closer," she told Marcus one evening. "The patterns are converging again." "How close?" "Days, maybe less." Marcus felt the familiar knot of fear in his stomach. "Then we need to move." "No," Zara said firmly. "We run, they follow. We hide, they find us. It never ends." "So what do you suggest?" "We make a stand." The idea was insane, but as Marcus looked around at the four women who had become the center of his world, he realized he agreed. Running would only delay the inevitable. If they were going to have any chance at a real life, they had to face their pursuers. "How do we fight them?" Marcus asked. "Together," Lyra said, "as a family." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Marcus had never had a real family, had never known the fierce protection and unconditional love that bound these women together. But somehow, over the course of 2 weeks, he had become part of something larger than himself. "Kira," he said, "can you see how this ends?" The young woman looked at him with those unsettling eyes. "There are many possibilities, but in all of them everything changes. For better or worse. That depends on the choices we make." Marcus stood up, decision crystallizing in his mind. "Then let's make sure we choose right." The next morning, Marcus woke to find Zara sitting at his kitchen table, her expression serious. "We need to talk," she said. Marcus poured coffee for both of them and sat down. "What about?" "About what happens next. About what this means for you." "I know what it means. I'm helping you fight for your freedom." "Marcus," Zara's voice was gentle but firm, "you're human. You have a life, a career, a future. We can't ask you to give all that up for us." "You're not asking, I'm choosing." "You don't understand the full cost of that choice." Marcus set down his coffee cup. "Then explain it to me." Zara was quiet for a long moment. "In our culture, when someone saves a warrior's life, when they prove their honor and courage in battle, they become part of the warrior's family. Not just as a friend or ally, but as true family." "That sounds like a good thing." "It is, but it also means responsibilities, obligations. The bond between warriors is sacred among my people. It's not something that can be broken or set aside." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that if you fight beside us, if you help us defeat the hunters, you become part of our family. Forever. My daughters would be your daughters. Their future would be your future. And if something happens to you—" Zara's eyes were steady. "Then you would be responsible for them. You would be their guardian, their protector. You would guide them as they build new lives. Marcus looked through the doorway to the living room, where Nova was working on some kind of technical project while Lyra practiced her forms. Kira sat in her usual corner, drawing her mysterious patterns. "They're incredible," he said. "All of them, strong, brave, brilliant." "They are warriors," Zara agreed. "But they're also young women who have seen too much violence, too much loss. They need stability, safety, a chance to discover who they are when they're not running or fighting." "And you think I can give them that?" "I think you already have. They trust you, Marcus. They've opened their hearts to you in a way they haven't with anyone since their father died." Marcus felt the weight of that trust, the responsibility it represented. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail them? "Then you'll have tried. That's more than most people would do." The conversation was interrupted by Nova's voice from the living room. "Marcus, you need to see this." They hurried to where Nova was monitoring the security feeds she'd installed around the warehouse. On the screen, Marcus could see 3 black SUVs parked at the end of his street. "They found us," Lyra said, her hand moving to her weapon. "How?" Marcus asked. "Doesn't matter now," Zara said, standing with effort. "What matters is what we do next." Kira looked up from her drawings. "The convergence point is here. The patterns are aligning." "How many?" Marcus asked Nova. 15 that I can see. Probably more we can't." "We're outnumbered," Lyra observed. "But not outgunned," Nova said, indicating the weapons she'd been modifying. "And not outthought." Marcus looked at each of them, these fierce women who had become his family. "What's the plan?" "We make them come to us," Zara said. "This is our ground now. We know every inch of it." "And then?" "Then we show them what happens when you threaten a warrior's family." As they prepared for battle, Marcus realized that Kira had been right. Everything was about to change. The question was whether they would survive to see what came next. The hunters came at dawn, just as Kira had predicted they would. Marcus watched from his concealed position as figures in tactical gear surrounded the warehouse, their movements precise and coordinated. These weren't amateurs. They were professionals who had done this before. "Zara Velter," a voice called through an amplifier. "We know you're in there. Come out peacefully and no one gets hurt." Marcus felt Zara's hand squeeze his shoulder. She was positioned behind him, still weak from her injuries but determined to fight. "They're lying," she whispered. "They'll kill anyone who gets in their way." "Then we don't let them get in the way," Marcus replied. The warehouse had been transformed over the past week into a fortress. Nova's technical expertise had turned every entrance into a potential trap, while Lyra's tactical knowledge had created fields of fire that would make it costly for the hunters to advance. But Marcus knew that ultimately, Their advantages wouldn't matter if they couldn't neutralize the hunters' superior numbers. Phase 1, he said into his comm unit. Nova's voice crackled back, initiating electronic warfare. The hunters' equipment began to malfunction almost immediately. Their radios died, their night vision goggles flickered, and their scanning devices gave wildly inaccurate readings. In the confusion, several of them began firing at shadows, their discipline breaking down as they lost their technological edge. Phase 2, Marcus said. Lyra emerged from a concealed position on the warehouse roof, her alien weapon cutting through the hunter's body armor like paper. She moved with inhuman grace, never staying in one place long enough for them to get a clear shot. Kira now. The youngest daughter had been their secret weapon. Her ability to see patterns extended to predicting where the hunters would move, where they would take cover, how they would react to each development. She guided Marcus through the warehouse via comm, helping him position himself for maximum effect. 3 coming through the south entrance, Kira's voice was calm despite the chaos. Low and left, wait, now. Marcus opened fire, his shots carefully placed to wound rather than kill. He wasn't a soldier, but he was determined to give these women the chance they deserved. The battle raged for 20 minutes, though it felt like hours. The hunters were skilled, but they were fighting an enemy that knew the terrain and had planned for every contingency. One by one, they fell back, their confidence shattered by the coordinated resistance. "Fall back," their leader shouted. "Regroup at the perimeter." Marcus allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe they could actually win this. That's when the real threat revealed itself. Marcus Thompson, a new voice called out, amplified and distorted by electronic enhancement. "You are harboring fugitive aliens. Surrender them now, or you will be considered an enemy combatant." Marcus felt his blood run cold. This wasn't just about the hunters anymore. Someone with real authority was involved. "Government?" he asked Zara. "Worse," she replied. "Corporate. They have official sanction to do whatever they want." A new group of vehicles approached the warehouse, these ones bearing the insignia of Titan Security Solutions, one of the largest private military contractors in the world. Marcus recognized the name from news reports about overseas conflicts and domestic security operations. "They're not here to capture us," Nova said, her voice tight with fear. "They're here to eliminate us." "All of us," Lyra added, "including Marcus." The reality of the situation hit Marcus like a physical blow. By helping the Velter family, he had made himself a target. There would be no going back to his old life, no pretending this had never happened. "What do we do?" he asked. "We fight," Zara said simply, "to the end." "There might be another way," Kira said suddenly. "The patterns, They're showing me something else. What? A choice, a sacrifice. Someone has to make a choice. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the corporate soldiers began their assault. These weren't bounty hunters looking for a payday. They were trained killers with orders to eliminate all witnesses. The warehouse shook under the impact of explosives. Windows shattered and smoke filled the air. Marcus grabbed Zara, helping her to a more secure position as debris rained down around them. "We can't hold them off," Lyra said, her weapon running low on ammunition. "There are too many." "The tunnels," Marcus said. "We can escape through the maintenance tunnels." "They'll follow us," Nova pointed out, "and we'll be trapped underground." "Then what do you suggest?" Kira looked up from her position, her strange eyes wide with understanding. "I know what the patterns mean now, what the choice is." "Kira, no," Zara said, recognizing something in her daughter's expression. "It's the only way, Mother. You know it is." Before anyone could stop her, Kira activated the building's emergency broadcast system, her voice carrying across the entire district. "My name is Kira Velter," she said, her young voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I am what your people call an alien, though this world is the only home I've ever known. My family and I are being hunted by those who would use us as weapons, who would deny us the right to exist as free beings." Marcus realized what she was doing. By making their situation public, by broadcasting their story to the world, she was changing the game entirely. "We are not your enemies," Kira continued. "We are refugees seeking only the chance to build peaceful lives. But there are those who profit from our suffering, who would see us enslaved or destroyed rather than free." The assault on the warehouse had paused. The corporate soldiers, uncertain how to proceed now that their operation was being broadcast live across the city. "The human who shelters us, Marcus Thompson, risked everything to save my mother's life. He has shown us the kindness and courage that represents the best of your species. If we die here today, remember that we died free, and that there are those among you who still believe in justice." The broadcast ended, but the damage was done. Within minutes, news crews began arriving at the scene. The corporate soldiers found themselves surrounded not just by the warehouse's defenders, but by cameras and reporters. "Brilliant," Nova said admiringly. "They can't just kill us now, too many witnesses." But Marcus could see the calculation in the corporate commander's eyes. Witnesses could be dealt with, stories could be suppressed, evidence could disappear. The soldiers were regrouping, preparing for a final assault. "It's not over," he said. "No," Zara agreed, "but Kira has given us a chance, a real chance." That's when Marcus heard a sound that made his heart skip, the distinctive whine of military aircraft approaching. But as the shapes resolved in the morning sky, he realized they weren't corporate aircraft. They were military, real military. "This is Colonel Sarah Martinez, United States Air Force," a voice announced over the aircraft speakers. "By order of the President, this area is now under federal jurisdiction. All corporate personnel are to stand down immediately." The corporate soldiers hesitated, their commander speaking rapidly into his radio. Marcus couldn't hear the conversation, but he could see the man's frustration as he received his orders. "Stand down," the commander finally called to his troops. "Mission aborted." As the corporate forces withdrew, Marcus felt Zara's hand slip into his. "It's not over," she said quietly. "This is just the beginning." "What do you mean?" "The patterns have shifted," Kira said, joining them. "The convergence point has passed. Now we deal with the consequences." Marcus looked out at the news crews, the military personnel, the crowds of curious onlookers gathering at the perimeter. Their quiet life in the warehouse was over, but maybe something better was beginning. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Zara said, "we find out what kind of world we're really living in." The aftermath of the siege transformed Marcus's quiet existence into a media circus. Within hours, the story of the human who had sheltered an alien family was trending across every social media platform. News crews from around the world descended on the warehouse district, turning the abandoned industrial area into a temporary city of reporters, protesters, and curious onlookers. Marcus found himself at the center of a controversy he had never wanted. Half the country hailed him as a hero, while the other half branded him a traitor to humanity. The alien family he had protected became symbols in a debate that had been brewing beneath the surface of society for years. The calls started at 6 this morning. Agent Rebecca Chen of the Department of Homeland Security explained during their first official interview. "Death threats mostly. Some offering support, but a lot of people are angry." They were sitting in a secure conference room at the federal building downtown, the first time Marcus had left the warehouse since the siege. Zara and her daughters were in separate interviews, their legal status still uncertain despite the dramatic rescue. "What happens to them?" Marcus asked. "That's complicated," Agent Chen replied. "Legally, they're classified as undocumented aliens, but their case has attracted attention from the highest levels of government." "What does that mean?" "It means powerful people are taking an interest. Some want to help, others want to use this situation for their own purposes." Marcus felt the familiar knot of anxiety in his stomach. "And what do you want?" Agent Chen studied him for a moment. "I want to understand what happened. How an ordinary cargo handler became the guardian of an alien family." "They needed help. I helped them." It's not that simple, and you know it. You risked everything for strangers. You turned your life upside down for people you'd known for less than a day. Sometimes that's what it takes. What takes? Doing the right thing. Agent Chen made a note in her file. The corporate security forces that attacked you, they had federal contracts, high-level authorization. Someone wanted this family captured or eliminated, and they were willing to use official resources to do it. Who? We're still investigating, but the trail leads to some very powerful people. People who don't like having their operations exposed. Marcus leaned back in his chair. So what you're telling me is that by helping them, I've made enemies of people who can make my life hell. Potentially, yes. And the family, what happens to them? That depends on several factors. Their cooperation with our investigation, their willingness to share information about their people, their ability to integrate into human society. They're not specimens to be studied, Marcus said sharply. They're people. I know that, but not everyone sees it that way. The interview continued for another hour, covering the events of the past weeks in exhaustive detail. Marcus answered every question honestly, but he could sense that Agent Chen was looking for something more, some angle that would make sense of his actions. When they finally finished, Marcus was escorted to another room where Zara was waiting. She looked tired but determined, her amber eyes reflecting the stress of the past few days. "How are the girls?" Marcus asked. "Scared, angry, ready to fight again if necessary." Zara managed a weak smile. "Your people have been kind, but we can feel the tension. We know that not everyone wants us here." "What did they ask you?" "Everything. Our home world, our people, why we came here, what we know about others like us." Marcus felt a chill. "Others like you." "We're not the only ones, Marcus. There are others scattered across your world, hiding, trying to survive. The hunters, the corporations, they're not just after us. They're after all of us." "How many?" "Hundreds, maybe thousands. We don't know for sure. We've been too busy running to make contact with others." The implications were staggering. If there were thousands of alien refugees hiding on Earth, the situation was far more complex than Marcus had imagined. "What do they want from you?" "Information, cooperation. They want us to help them find the others." "And will you?" Zara's expression was conflicted. "I want to help. These people have been living in fear just as we have. But I also know that once we give them that information, we lose our leverage. We become tools instead of people." "What about asylum, legal status?" "They're discussing it. But there are factions within your government that see us as a threat, others that see us as an opportunity. Very few that see us as simply people deserving of basic rights." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "We'll figure it out together." "Marcus," Zara's voice was soft but serious, "you need to understand something. By helping us, by becoming part of our family, you've changed your life forever. There's no going back to who you were before." "I know." "Do you, really? Because the investigators are offering you a way out. Witness protection, a new identity, a chance to disappear and start over somewhere else." Marcus felt something cold in his chest. "They offered you the same thing." "They did. A chance to relocate, to live quietly somewhere under government protection. And I told them that our family stays together, all of us." The warmth in Marcus's chest returned, stronger than before. "That's what I told them too. Even knowing what it might cost you. Especially knowing what it might cost me." They were interrupted by Agent Chen, who entered with a tablet showing news footage from around the world. Protests had erupted in major cities, some supporting the alien family, others demanding their deportation. Politicians were making speeches, experts were offering analysis, and the story was dominating every news cycle. "This is bigger than just your situation now,"